So you just went out and bought some beautiful rough sawn white oak, but the problem is it's got a bit of a twist to it. How do I get that out and get this into something that's more functional? It's too thick, I want it thinner. Let's dive in. So let's throw some winding sticks on here. You can see as I lower the camera down, that backboard is starting to disappear. And right there, the far corner over here has disappeared, and you can still see a little bit on that other side. If I lift up the front board, to get close to it, the front winding stick, I've got about that much space. That gap underneath the board over here is how much material I have to take off of this side in order to bring this stick down and level with the one in back of it. So after using the winding sticks, I know that I've got a high spot here. This corner here needs some work, and this corner needs some work. I don't want to touch this corner, and I don't want to touch this corner because they're my low spots. Whenever you're planing a board, you want to know where the high spots are, and you want to hit those spots, but you don't want to hit everything in between. So there is a strip that goes from this corner to this corner over here, and I do not want to hit that until the very end. That is my low spot on the board. The other thing I know is that the sticks told me I was about an 1/8 inch out across one side. And that means if I take a 1/16 off of this corner and a 1/16 off of this corner, then they'll be down to level with that center point. And thankfully I have my irons on my scrub plane set to about a 1/16 of an inch right now, so it should only need one pass at the very corners. And then I want to feather that out towards the middle. I want to start by putting a chamfer on this back edge, because if I just grab the plane and I start going to town, I'm going to tear out this and I'm going to blow out deeper than I want, and then I'm going to have to take off more material. So I'm going to start over here and just go from the corner out to somewhere around here, trying to feather it out a little bit. I've just taken the edge down a little bit, so when I go across, I'm not going to be blowing out those fibers. Then I'm going to start over here in the corner, and I'm going to go across. And each time I go across, I'm going to be taking off a little bit less. So I'm starting back here. And I've just taken things down to that point all the way across here. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other corner. On this side, I don't have to worry about blowing out because I'm going into the board. But I'm going to pull up right around that corner there. So I'm going to start here. Oh, I ran into a knot over here. That knot's going to give me a fun time. So I'm actually going to switch out to this plane, which I have a little bit lower of a cut, but also it's a wider cut. And having a lower cut that's wider is a little bit easier to push through that difficult grain. And even then, I'm still going to catch that knot. So sometimes you come in and hit it from different angles. I'm just lightly hitting it, not putting much weight on it at all. Once we're past that, then I'm going to take that down. So now that I've scrubbed that out, I can bring these back in and set them down and look at it. And that is actually really, really close. I brought them back to just about the right spot. I don't need them to be 100% perfect because I've got all this scalloping in here, and I still want to remove that. This isn't smooth by any means, but now it's really close to relatively flat. The scrubbing process is not about getting it smooth and beautiful. It's about taking off material, hogging it out, getting some tear out, blowing out edges, and having a lot of fun along the way. Getting some massive chips and curls that come off rather than the fine, dainty things you get with a smoothing plane. But now that we've taken off that majority of it, now we want to come back through and start to make it a little bit more pretty than just that. And that's where you bring in your jointer. This now is going to float over all of the low spots. Because it's a long plane, if I'm touching a high spot here and I'm touching a high spot here, the blade won't touch the spots in between. It will only hit the high spots. With the jointer, I'm going to come in, I'm going to set a really deep, heavy cut. And I'm going to start from one side to the other, and just take long passes. And you'll hear how it goes, and it kind of skips across things. It's only hitting the high spots. It's not hitting the low spots. And that can be really, really frustrating because it's not cutting, and then suddenly it cuts, and you're thinking there's something wrong with the plane. No, the board's just not flat, because this will tell you when it's flat. So do 4 or 5 passes all the way across the board, and then all the way back across the board, and all the way back across the board, and soon you'll realize that you're getting a shaving most of the time across the board. And then eventually you're getting a shaving all the time across the board. Another problem people will run into is I've gotten this really nice and smooth in most places, except for here, I've got the scallops still. So I really want to focus on those spots, but then you run into problems. I just spent all my time flattening the board. And if I focus on one spot, I'm going to be taking that spot down. I don't want to do that. I want to still focus on the whole board. So even though I just have a little bit more scalloping to do here, I still need to make sure I'm doing the whole board. I'm going to start from one side and take a pass, move over, take a pass, move over. I'm just going to keep going. Even though I'm getting good full shavings here, I'm going to keep going until I get to the other side, then I'm going to come back. And now the scallops are almost gone. I need to do a couple more. So I'm going to do that whole thing over again. This plane is not about focusing. This plane is about doing the whole board. If you're ever using a jointer and you're just doing a spot, you're probably doing it wrong. Again, we know the board was flat and relatively twist-free from the winding sticks. This is just to get rid of the scallops from the scrub planes. Once I've gotten rid of all the scallops, I'm going to put the winding sticks back on here. I'm going to step back and I'm going to take a look at it. And I'm going to see that I am really, really close to it. But my stick is a little bit high this way. So that lets me know I need to take off just a little more material here and over in this corner. I'm also going to move my sticks along and see if it changes anywhere along it. Here, I'm dead on. That's exact. Here, it's twisted just a little bit. And that lets me know I've got a slight high spot right here. I've just got to hit that one little area. But if I bring in my jointer, which is set with a really heavy cut, ooh, I might be taking off too much. It's at this point we can bring in the smoothing plane. Oh, and I just want to hit that one little area. Taking, and then we're going to check it again and see how we did. Yeah, that's better. Just took off a couple thousandths of an inch, and now that's what I want. That's nice and clean and smooth. The last thing is there might be a little bit of tear out or a little bit of roughness left from the jointer plane because it's a very heavy, thick cut. This might cause you a little bit of issue. And so in that case, I'm going to take the smoothing plane and I'm going to use it like I did the jointer. I'm not going to use it to flatten or anything else. I'm just going to do full passes from one side of the board all the way to the other. You'll also know that your smoother is now kind of doing that same skipping thing that the jointer just did with the scallops. And why is that? I mean, I just perfectly flattened it out with the jointer. The thing is that the smoother is taking a very, very fine, thin shaving. This jointer is taking 2 or 3/100ths of an inch cut. It's a relatively heavy cut for a hand plane. But this is only taking a couple thousandths cut. And that couple thousandths is very, very sensitive. And so if it's not taking a cut all the way along, it means it's not perfectly smooth. Now, for 99.9% of all work out there, that's perfectly fine. A lot of times you're going to have tear out in one little spot. And I want to get rid of that one little spot. So I'm going to bring in my smoothing plane. And I'm just going to do that one little spot. I'm going to kind of come at it from slightly different angles. And I get that one little spot. And now I'm going to come back through and clean it out. And I just hit that one little spot. So theoretically, I have a bit of a dish here. Oh no, I have a bit of a dish in my perfectly flat. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. No one will ever notice that. And for 90% of the joinery out there, it's not going to make any difference. Now, if I was going to be putting a dado in here with a sliding dovetail, it might make a little bit of a difference. It might create a tiny little gap, but that's only if I have the dado here. If the dado is here, it's not going to make any difference. That's one of the things that makes the card scraper great, is with the card scraper I can really come in and I can detail this fine spot right here and just get that one spot perfect. Yeah, I had a tiny bit of tear out there and I can focus on that one tiny little spot and bring it in to exactly where I want it to be. However, with all that being said, I usually do not bring in my smoother until I'm almost ready to do either my joinery that's going to be interfacing with that face, or I'm ready to actually do the finish work. Most of the time, I'm going to go right off the jointer, even if there's a little bit of tear out, and I'm going to do all of my joinery work and get it all together and functioning with that. And then the smoother comes in because you're probably going to be dinging up the wood from time to time, moving it around the shop and getting things in place, and it's nice to come in a little later and then do your detailing with the smoother. So I don't do the smoothing work on the board until it's almost ready for finish. The nice thing is I know this surface is is true. That actually gives us the term tried and true. Because if I bring in my tri-square and I put it up against my true surface, I can try the edge of the board. And look at that! This one now is 90 degrees to my true surface. This board is tried and true. So now that I have a reference surface that I know is exactly what it should be, and I have a reference edge that I know is exactly what it is, I can measure everything off of these two faces, and I can know that all my joinery is going to line up because it's coming off of surfaces that are tried and true. Oddly enough, I didn't know the terminology tried and true came from that until I was talking with Rex Kruger, and yeah, actually looking into it, that's the history behind it, so kind of interesting. But all that being said, it really kind of comes down to the scrub and the foreplane. Yes, I could do all of that work perfectly with just a simple number 4, but it's going to take me a lot longer. The scrub plane and the foreplane are phenomenal because they can tear through the material very quickly. They can take off large chunks of heavy curls and remove material. And especially if you have a really twisted board or a lot of mess up from the rough saw, the scrub plane and the foreplane are invaluable because they just do the work quickly. Once those are done, you can bring in your jointer to smooth out and clean all the spots left over from that. And then when you're really getting close to it and the joinery is done and the functioning is there, then you can bring in the smoother and you can get that last beautiful gossamer shaving that might come off of it. And do that just before finishing. I didn't go into the whole process of dimensioning a board because if you're taking that one surface, then everything kind of breaks down off of the tried and true surfaces. To go all the way around the board, you're then just using squares and marking them off of the known faces. And it's pretty straightforward. And if you want more information, I've got several videos on it. And I'm probably going to put out another video on it sometime in the future because I like to update them from time to time with new things that I learn. But if you have any specific questions or thoughts or even snide remarks, throw those down below. I do read through all of the comments and I answer as many of them as I can get. So thank you. That actually helps out the channel. Anytime you comment down there, it helps us get in front of more people, helps the magical algorithm here on YouTube, and really it is wonderful. Or you could join those people who put comment down below. It really means a lot, and I always try to give a heart to everyone who comments down below with comment down below. Thank you. But if you want to go even farther, there are a bunch of names over here. Those are some of the magnificent, wonderful, benevolent, gorgeous, amazing people over on Patreon. Because of that, patrons or members here on the channel, people who've clicked the thank you button, you guys sponsor this channel. You guys are the reason I get to do this, and without you, Wood by Wright would not exist. So thank you for that. If you want to find out more about that, want to get some of the special perks that come with both of them, then think about joining Patreon down below. I think that'll do it for now, and until next time, have a wonderful day. Scrub joint smooth, scrub joint smooth, scrub the joint smooth. Scrub the joint smooth.